Hey, everybody, and welcome to Happy Hour on Friday here in New Jersey. It's 5 o'clock. It is time to get the happy hour started. I appreciate you guys joining me on a Friday evening. This is going to be a live session we're doing across YouTube Live, Facebook Live, and LinkedIn Live. So hopefully you guys can check us out on one of our social media channels. And because it is happy hour, I already have my drink in hand. So again, we're not condoning drinking unless you are able to do so legally, but we are going to feature two different things here on the live cast. So this is the this Source Brewery here in Cold Snack, their glass, but inside of it is my favorite drink, which is Cane Head High from the Cane Brewing Company here in Monmouth County. So today what we're going to cover, guys, is going to be largely about a market shift that's happening within the real estate industry nationwide, but how is it actually looking here in New Jersey right now? Then we're going to get into a bunch of other relevant news to real estate here in New Jersey that you may have heard of, but I bet you probably haven't. But before we do that, let's start off with where you guys are actually joining us from. So go ahead and drop in the comments wherever you guys are actually watching from. I'd love to hear it. And tell me where you're watching from. We have Eric from Monmouth County who's on here. What's going on, Eric? How are you? I think I have family members who are watching from up in Bergen County as well. And I know a bunch of you guys are traveling, so you may not be able to actually type in your comments because you're on your phones while you're headed out for the weekend. What an amazing Memorial Day weekend we had last week. Weather-wise here in Jersey was unbelievable. And I'm happy we got all the rain out of the way yesterday and Wednesday, so that we have a nice weekend on tap here in Jersey too. 70-degree weather both days. So drop in the comments where you guys are headed to this weekend for the weather. But first thing we're going to start off with is a piece of news that just dropped last week. So I'm going to switch my screen over here for you guys so you can see this. So announced just on the 27th of May, the state actually decided to make all New Jersey state parks and state beaches free for the entire summer. So if you've ever been to New Jersey and visited here, whether you live in Jersey or you live out of state, you know that to get on any of our Jersey beaches, you have to pay. I think there's only 8, maybe 7 beaches in the whole state that are free of charge for you to go on, which if you're from California or from Florida or other states, you might find that kind of crazy that we have to pay to get to the beach. But there's usually somewhere between $1.50 and a $10 daily charge per person. Kids are usually free. Or if you're an annual beach badge holder, they're usually somewhere between $75 and $150 for you to get an annual beach badge for the entire summer. But the state came out and made an announcement on the 27th. They're making all New Jersey state beaches and state parks free for the entire summer, which is pretty cool. So that means Island Beach State Park, which is a 10-mile stretch just north of Barnegat Light and the Barnegat Inlet that stretches up to where Seaside and Bayhead and all that area is. That'll be completely free. And there's actually a full list of other places, other state and county parks, I should say state parks, that are on that list as well. And here's the list of it. So if you go up to nj.gov/department/parks and forests, you can see here, based on north, central, south, and coastal, all the different places that fall under the state park and state beach that will fall under the free headline that they just announced to be able to use for free for the summer. So on the coastal side here, you've got Barnegat Lighthouse, you've got Cape May Point State Park, Corson's Inlet State Park, Fort Mott, Island Beach State Park, Liberty State Park, and North Brigantine Natural Area. Now, you probably would be surprised that on this list you don't see Sandy Hook. Now, Sandy Hook is actually free to enter, but there is a parking fee to park in the lot there. So that has nothing to do with the state making it free of charge. That parking fee will likely still remain. But I thought that was pretty cool. And you guys probably didn't actually see the other slide I was sharing with you there, but you can go to New Jersey, nj.gov, and look for parks and recreation. It'll tell you all the different locations that would be included in this as well. But this kind of leads into a second point, which is if you've lived in Jersey most of your life, you've probably heard this conversation come up every year or 2 years about whether New Jersey should make its beaches free to everybody all the time. So if you live near the beach, you know, part of the best time of the year is actually early summer and late summer. So we call September local summer here in Jersey, because if you live close enough to the beach when the kids all return to school and you can still get down to the beach in September, it's the best weather and there's no crowds. And the same thing with May and early June, depending upon when summer starts. But there's a push again to make beaches free of charge for everybody here in New Jersey during the bulk of the summer season. So I have that question to you guys. If you would mind typing in the comments here below, tell me whether or not you think that Jersey should make their beaches completely free to everybody all the time. Let's see who has anything to say on that. I know me personally, I would rather than be free to everybody, but let's be honest, that's not so easy to pull off. If you're from places like Florida or, like I said, California, where they are free of charge for people and you don't have to pay to get on them, that's because the system is entirely different. So here in Jersey, the cost to maintain and guard and clean all those beaches falls on the municipality for the most part. So if you're going to make them free of charge, you can't just pass that cost on to the towns and then not be able to take care of that without any income coming from it. So they'd have to overhaul the system, I would imagine, and make it so that the state would still be funding that with tax income, tax money to go to the municipalities for them to be able to guard and clean those beaches. Because otherwise, if those beaches weren't guarded and they weren't cleaned, that would be a disaster. And you'd obviously understand with the number of people that are on our beaches in the summer, that'd be a pretty unsafe situation as well. So it's an interesting topic that's up for conversation. If you guys are looking for the link to add your name to the petition to make Jersey beaches free, I'll make sure that ends up in the description down below this once it goes up on YouTube. All right, so that takes us to the next topic, which is about New Jersey and extra money pouring in due to taxes. So give me 1 second here. I'm going to pivot over to that. And here we go. So the state is on par to collect $4 billion more this fiscal year than what they planned in the budget to be able to collect in taxes. So it's spawning a really big conversation in state government about what to do with that excess surplus. Again, if you live in Jersey, or if you lived here in the past, or if you've watched any of our videos, you know one of the downsides of living here is our taxes. Property taxes are really high, income tax is high here, and you're dealing with it being a fairly not friendly state from a tax perspective. We get a lot of benefits that come in return from that, right? So we have a great school system and a whole bunch of other things that come along with it, but our taxes are still really high. Now, because of the surplus and windfall that they have with tax collection, due mostly to income tax. So you imagine, where's that money coming from and why? Well, people have made a lot of money during COVID. A lot of businesses did well. While there's a lot of businesses who didn't do well, there's a lot of money that was made, especially due to COVID relief and PPP loans and things like that. Totally separate topic we're not going to talk about today. Then all on top of that, you also have, and this wasn't noted in the article, but you have, I'm going to pull back over here. So on top of that, you also have the fact that state collects taxes from real estate. So you have property taxes. Our property taxes are largely based off the assessed value of the property. Now, I do real estate for a living. I can tell you that real estate, if you watch our videos, you know, is up somewhere between 20 and 35%, some places as much as 50% here in the state. So as the taxes are reassessed on those properties and they're bringing in more tax revenue, that's also fueling where that tax windfall is coming from. So the reason for this article is actually why I'm bringing it up is there's a big conversation and controversy of what to do with that money. So in the article, they actually note here, to put in perspective the tax income that the state has, New Jersey's tax revenues this year, 2022, will be higher than the total government spending in 2020 for a fourth of all European countries combined. It's astounding, the amount of tax revenue that they bring into the state. So there's a bit of a push and pull here happening at state government level. You have Republicans worried that Democratic government's going to sneak in a whole bunch of extra things to spend money on before the end of the term. At the last minute, you have Republicans that want to do tax relief. You have Democrats that are saying, well, we should just give a refund to people. We should give $1,000 to everybody who lives in the state of New Jersey as a result of this tax windfall that we have to pass that back on to people. So it's a very interesting conversation. It hasn't really been announced exactly what they're going to do yet. But I'd love to hear what you guys think we should do with that extra money, because I'm sure a lot of you have some very, very interesting and strong opinions on that. All right. So next on the topic, I wanted to talk to you guys about we had some really crazy rain yesterday. And if you were in North Jersey, I heard you guys got it a lot worse than we did. If you were in any of the boroughs of New York, I heard you guys got it crazy style. So if you remember last year, we had a couple really ridiculous amounts of rain and some storms like Hurricane Ida that came through at the end of the summer, where we ended up with subways that were completely filled with water. If you were up in northern New Jersey, like AJ, that's on our team that lives up in Bergen County, some of the roads up there, like Route 46, there was water up and above the median already. So this is bringing an interesting conversation up at the state level. So if you guys think about what happened after Sandy, you remember that the FEMA flood maps got completely redrawn based upon that 100-year storm and where we saw flooding in places that it had never been seen before. And what happened because of that is if you go to any of the beach towns, now you see that the flood zones have been drawn mostly larger, like further inland. There's also changes to the flood elevation, meaning that if that area got flooded during Sandy, now there is a BFE, a base flood elevation, that for the town, if you're going to build a new house, you have to build your first floor above that BFE, that base flood elevation. So you have to do a flood elevation certificate, then you have to apply to the township when you're doing your permits. They have to make sure you're building it above that floodplain. Well, interestingly enough, with the crazy inland flooding that we've been having, the state is actually looking at changing their flood maps for the inside for non-tidal areas. So I'm going to pull this up for you guys again here. So they're looking at changing new construction rules on areas that have been slammed by floods. So again, these are areas that aren't affected by tidal surging. This isn't the bay or the ocean that's rising as a result of, lunar tides and a lot of rain. This is just too much rain coming down too fast, nowhere for it to go. It builds up and it has no place to escape to. They're going to redraw the maps based on what we've seen over the last couple of years. And you may find that some of these inland towns are going to have construction rules change, just like you saw at the beach towns, where they're going to say, okay, now you're in, let's say, for example, Patterson, and we saw a ton of flooding on these couple blocks. You may have to, when you go to build new houses, build them above that base flood elevation to avoid this from happening. It'll also mean that when they redraw these maps and there are flood zones where they didn't used to be, you may get a call from your mortgage company asking you to get flood insurance, even when you didn't have it in the past. Now, flood insurance, if you own your property outright and there's no mortgage company, is optional. You can choose to do it or not. A lot of people who didn't have flood insurance when Sandy hit and they got wiped out and didn't have the money to rebuild the house, they just walked away from the property. So if you have a mortgage and they redraw these flood maps, which is still a ways out, this is just the beginning of the conversation. Don't be surprised if your mortgage company calls you up and says, hey, by the way, the flood maps changed. It looks like now you're in an AE or an X or a V or a VE zone, which if you guys have questions about what those different things mean, drop us a line in the comments. We'll make a separate video about it or get back to you one-on-one. But based upon what your flood certification is, your level, that's going to dictate what your premium that you pay every year is for flood insurance. So don't be surprised if you see this change in the near future on inland towns where you've seen a lot of flooding. You may see flood insurance actually popping up on those properties. All right. Next on the docket, we have quiet time here. Actually, I'm due for a drink. So I'm not going to bring this one up on the screen, but there's also a $4 billion plan, which I find kind of unique that there's a $4 billion surplus in taxes. Now there's a $4 billion plan that's going to choke Hudson County, that they're trying to take that choke right at the beginning of the Holland Tunnel, where it goes from like 4 lanes to 8 lanes back down to 2 lanes. And they're going to redo that whole area to make the traffic pattern a little bit easier. So if that happens, you guys know the viaduct that leads from the turnpike all the way out to Jersey City to get into the Holland Tunnel's had some work on it for a while. You can imagine how bad the traffic will be on this, but let's hope they actually improve that, because that would be a huge improvement for those of you who live in Jersey that take the tunnel into the city every day. But I'm anxious to see how many of you have gone back to commuting to the city more than 2 days a week. A lot of our clients here in Monmouth County and our clients up in Bergen County have remained mostly virtual. But if you saw the news this week, Elon Musk made an announcement to all of Tesla's employees that you have to return to work. Otherwise, they will assume you don't want to work there anymore. So I'm curious to see with you guys, how many of you have been able to stay virtual full-time working from home versus how many of you have been called back to the office? And if so, how many days a week? Because I know Monmouth County, we benefited tremendously from the number of people that moved out from the COVID pandemic to move out to here because they wanted more space. They wanted a bigger house. They wanted a yard. They wanted a place for the dog. and they didn't need to be in the city anymore because everyone was working from home, and the expectation was that it was going to stay that way. But if it didn't, you could still commute to the city. I'm anxious to see how many of you actually have to go back in, and how that commute is going to factor into where you decided to buy a house, and if you regret making that decision, or if you're still happy that you decided to buy here in Jersey, whether North Jersey or Central Jersey. And yes, Central Jersey does exist. I got a high five from Dana Cadena. Thanks, Dana. I appreciate it. Always one of my biggest fans. She was there in the beginning too. She remembers me as a real estate agent back in 2008 when I was very green. So thanks, Dana. I appreciate it. So the next thing I'm going to talk to you guys about is something that's affected me personally over the past couple of weeks, and it finally came out on the news in the last couple of days. So we do a lot of business both down in Long Beach Island as well as in Monmouth County along the beach areas, with a couple buildings specifically here in Monmouth County, the Lofts at Pier Village, which was an Extel building that was built right next to the other version of Pier Village that had been there for the last 8 or 9 years. In that building, it has become very popular to rent your property out in there, rent your unit out, because of a 30-year tax abatement that the building offered. So from a tax perspective, it reduces a lot of your overhead in order for you to be able to then make more profit on the rental. It also was advantageous because the building, in line with the township, will allow you to do 2 certificates of occupancy a year, meaning you could have a tenant who moves in for a month, and then the rest of the year could be a different person. Where most of that area in Long Branch, you have buildings that require you no less than a 6-month tenancy. And if you're renting to a summer renter, who wants to rent for 6 months? They just want June, July, and August, or Memorial Day weekend to Labor Day. So I'm getting to the point. We have seen a slowdown this year. So a lot of the rentals that we put on previous years that moved in February and March did not move this year, and it was quiet. Now, this is totally unrelated to the market shift that we're going to get to in a few minutes, but it does tie into the general market conversation. And what I'm talking about is that there's been a massive slowdown this year in summer rentals in the tri-state area. So I'm going to pull an article up here real quick that was in both CNBC as well as the New York Post. And it talks about the Hamptons summer rental market specifically, but I can tell you this applies to Jersey as well. So Hamptons rental prices are down 25% this year. And the title of the article on CNBC is "The Hamptons summer rental market is facing an unexpected chill as inventory piles up and prices come down." We have seen the same thing happening here in Monmouth County, although I have not seen the same thing happen down on Long Beach Island, for example. Rentals on LBI are at pace of where they were last year, which is up dramatically from where they were pre-COVID. So there's some markets that are immune to it and some that aren't. But the Hamptons are seeing a 25% drop. You're seeing places there that would normally rent for $75,000 a month are actually taking $45,000 for the month, because the inventory is sitting there and there aren't as many people looking to rent it. So the question becomes, why is that? What changed now that wasn't the same thing last year or 2 years ago? So part of it is 2 years ago, we couldn't travel anywhere, right? We were under COVID lockdown. Nobody could travel anywhere. In fact, a lot of people who had their summer rentals had to have them canceled because we weren't allowed to take occupancy on places during the pandemic. Last year, there was a boom in the number of people that wanted to rent because it was still a time frame where we really weren't that comfortable going too far and traveling out of the country or across the country. So people kind of vacationed close to home, and the summer rental market in Jersey and in the Hamptons was off the charts. Well, now we're sitting here 2 years later, and Europe has opened itself up. And for the most part, you can travel pretty much anywhere right now. So you're seeing a huge boom despite the increase in airline tickets and hotel charges because of both inflation and then the price of gas. You're seeing a lot more people traveling internationally. So Europe is super popular. We have a contingent of religious population that rents in Long Branch, for example, that is finally able to travel back to Israel. So we're seeing a lot of people who would normally rent in the market here traveling back there for the first time in a long time, and that may be affecting it. But in general, it's been very interesting to see how there's not a normal slowdown, but an abnormal slowdown, because the peak last year was so strong and this year's pulling back a little bit. My expectation on this one, if you're asking me to be a prophet, is that next year we'll go back to normal, which will be slightly less than last year, but more than we have this year, because everybody will have gotten those vacations under their belt and decided, okay, I'm ready to go back to my Jersey Shore vacation and have that locked down for my week down at LBI or my month down in Spring Lake or whatever it is you're going to do. But very interesting to take note of. And it's happening out in the Hamptons probably 2x, 3x what we're seeing here in New Jersey. Okay. So you guys didn't tune in to hear all of that stuff, although I hope that you actually enjoyed it. What we're going to talk about next is what you actually came here to see or listen to, besides me actually enjoying a beer on camera at 5 o'clock on a Friday. And that's the market shift. So one of the last videos we made on YouTube was talking about a bubble and whether we have a real estate bubble here in New Jersey, whether we have a real estate bubble in the country. And what I mentioned to you is, yes, I think we do have a bubble. And that was a month ago. What we have seen change here in New Jersey, and specifically in Bergen, Hudson, Essex, Union, Monmouth, Middlesex, and Ocean County, because those are the ones we cover, is a dramatic shift. And realistically, I would tell you it's in the last 2 to 3 weeks, not even 4 weeks out. So for the last 2 years, and let's call it May 2020, once everything sort of opened back up and everybody was freaked out by COVID and decided they wanted to move out of the city, move out of their condo, get more space, get a bigger house, the market exploded. And we've seen a 35% appreciation on most people's properties. Everything has gone with multiple offers. Everything has gone with bidding wars. Everything's going over asking price. That's starting to change. So what's changing it? So we know that interest rates have gone up 2 percentage points since the end of last year. We'll look right now just so you guys can see what I'm quoting here. But one of the places I go, although I don't recommend getting your mortgage here necessarily, but we do usually keep tabs on what's happening on the market as far as mortgage rates by going to Bankrate. So right now, the national average for a 30-year fixed, according to bankrate.com, is 5.28%. We ended 2021 right around 3%. Maybe just a little bit over that. So you're seeing a dramatic increase in interest rates. And remind me at the end, if you can, to talk to you guys about a 15 or a 10-year ARM. Those are very, very beneficial products right now if you're looking to get a mortgage. But interest rates are up. Prices are up 35% 2 years over the preceding time frame. So you're seeing people that, regardless of price range, but more commonly right now, we're seeing it in the entry-level price point. You're seeing people who have been stretched on price. Hold on, the camera decided to go down. So technical difficulties here for a second. Stay with me, guys. This is what happens when you do live video and you're the only person in the office doing it. Hang tight for me. I'm coming back. Let's see. There we go. All right. Thank you for hanging on. We only lost one person. Amazing. So you're seeing people who, and we're seeing it more at the entry-level price point than we are up in the super luxury price point, but I'll get to that in a second. You're seeing people who've been stretched on price, right? The same house they wanted to buy, that 4-bedroom, 2.5-bath colonial that was $750,000 is now over $1 million. We're seeing a huge pull on them to get the same house price-wise, while their income hasn't necessarily gone up the same amount. Now, even though they could stretch themselves and afford that based on going higher in their price range to get there because rates were so low, now rates are pulling them in the opposite direction. And with rates being at 5.25% on top of the price already being high, you're seeing a lot of folks who are just going, I'm out. I can't compete in this market anymore. I need to wait this out. But there's some flawed thinking in that. The flawed thinking is that rates are going to go down near term, which is not going to happen. In all reality, the Fed is going to continue to raise their rate, which affects the mortgage rates for the most part. They're going to keep raising this until people stop buying. This is the only mechanism they have to slow down the economy, to stop housing prices from climbing through the roof. And we saw this happen in the 80s. So if you are young, under 40, I'm not quite under 40, but close, and you ask your parents and grandparents, they'll tell you of times in the 80s where they had mortgage rates on their homes that were in the double-digit range, 13, 15, 17%. The Fed is going to keep doing this and raising interest rates until you guys decide you want to stop buying. And then they'll go back to reducing them again. So we will likely, in my opinion, hit 6% by the end of the year. And we could hit 7 or 8% next year if rates continue to rise because the number of people buying continues to be as strong as it is, which is the part of the flawed thinking. There are so many buyers out there right now, not just the people who decided they wanted to move, but people who need to move, first time home buyers, millennials. It's a massive population. And if you've watched our videos on the millennial generation, it's a massive population, as big, if not bigger, than the baby boomers. We have not built enough houses in addition to the existing stock of inventory we have to satisfy the number of people who are coming into home ownership. They also don't start buying homes, millennials, generally until they're 30 years old, which we have, I think it's a quarter or a third of the population that's turning 30 in the next 10 years. So you have a massive groundswell of buyers that are entering the market, not enough inventory, which we're still at historically low inventory of somewhere between 2 and 4 months as a state. We need it to be 6 to 8 months for that to be a neutral market where there's as many buyers as there are sellers. And over 8 months of inventory would be a buyer's market where there's too much inventory. So if you are sitting here right now and you're saying rates are at 5.25, I'm not going to buy, I'm going to wait for things to slow down and wait for the market to pull back a little bit. I don't think you're going to see prices pull back because the number of people in the market, even with a pullback of 10 to 15% of the number of people in the market, still keeps us in seller's market territory. If you're waiting for interest rates to go down, I don't see that happening anytime in the next couple of years. But if you buy the house now and you are buying this property for the foreseeable future, which right now the average term of home ownership, which used to be 7 years that people would stay in a house, has actually gone up to 10 to 12 years, rates will drop and then you can refinance at that point. But if you wait for the market to go to a place where interest rates are low, prices may continue to go up. And even if they don't, I believe it is a 10% increase in the market wipes out a 10% decrease in the market value of a house. If you think the market's going to go back and we're going to lose 10% of our pricing, is wiped out by a 1% interest rate hike. So if we go from 5.25 to 6.25% next year, and the market went down 10%, which we're not forecasting or anybody's seeing is going to happen, it's still a net negative or a net zero to you. So is it really worth waiting? But what we are seeing is that it is actually starting to shift. I think this is more due to the news and prices just being high for everything. Gas prices being high, when your food, when you go out to dinner, when you got buy groceries, everything's expensive. And I think there's a bit of shell shock that's happening with everybody right now going, I just want to hold up. And everybody keeps kind of telling me that the real estate market's in a bubble. So do I really want to act right now? I would challenge you to move against that tide, because the media tends to put news out that's not necessarily accurate. And in this situation, I think could be leading people in the wrong direction to be waiting when in another year or 9 months, you may have higher interest rates and prices may not have changed very much at all, which means a net more expensive property to you at that point. The only advantage you might have at that point is if fewer buyers are in the market, you may not have to make an offer quite so far over asking price or even at asking price. You might not have as many people to compete with. And that is what we have started to see. So, for example, the way we had been handling properties for the last couple of years is, and you kind of saw everybody doing this, we would list a house on a Wednesday or a Thursday. We'd have showings Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, open houses on Saturday and Sunday. You'd have multiple offers, 30 showings, 10 offers come in, and then you'd set a deadline for Monday or Tuesday for best and final offers. Give me a little thumbs up in the comments if you guys actually had bought a house that way or made offers that way. And then you'd have, as a listing agent, I'd sit there and on Monday afternoon or Tuesday, I'd go through all the offers with my clients and we'd pick in order best to worst, and then we'd move forward with one and keep the others as backups. Now, that the buyers and the agents for those buyers have been so predicated on or so conditioned to believe that that's the way this is working, that as this shift has changed, they haven't changed their mindset. So, for example, I'll speak anecdotally about our properties. We've put 4 properties on in the last 3 weeks, and we've seen places that were priced correctly, that were listed on the correct day, that set up open houses, that we marketed correctly, that normally we would have come out of the weekend with 15 people at each open house and 5 to 10 offers on a Monday or Tuesday on a best and final deadline. We've come out of those weekends on those houses with maybe 8 to 10 showings, 3 to 4 people coming to the open house, and maybe 1 offer coming out of that weekend, which is a very, very dramatic difference to what we had seen for the last 2 years. But the funny thing is, as I reach out to all the agents who had shown the properties, the agents themselves are waiting for a deadline to be announced before they will actually make the offer for their client, because they're so conditioned to think that there's a best and final deadline coming, because that's what we've been doing for 10 years, that they're not making the initial offer for the property. we're sitting here as a seller and a listing agent saying, okay, well, maybe this home sale contingent offer that we got on Monday is the best we're going to do. Do we wait a couple of days? Do we take that offer? And I will tell you that there are still offers sitting out there that have not been written yet. Once they know there's an offer in hand, then all of a sudden people come forward with other offers. And we still went over asking price on this property by about $50,000. But what I'm trying to raise to your attention is there is an immense amount of opportunity right now for properties that are listed. If you are going to see things that are listed Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday of this week, don't wait to see if there's an announcement for a best and final deadline. Go in with a strong offer, an asking price offer. You see it on a Thursday or Friday and make it. You might just find that the seller takes your offer because of all the other people who are sitting out there waiting that didn't make an offer. So it's a very interesting change. So we talk about buyers markets, neutral markets, and seller markets, which we've been in a seller's market for an extremely long time right now. We don't live in neutral markets for very long. It's like a pendulum, right? So as we swing from buyer market to seller market, we go through neutral. We don't usually live in neutral for more than 6 months. And by the time you feel it, it's mostly behind you. I believe we are right now in that neutral market. And depending upon what the Fed is going to do, we're either going to swing into buyer market territory, which will take a while because of the number of buyers that are still out there looking to buy, or if they can time the stopping of the increase in the rates next year perfectly, which I don't plan they're going to do very well, then we may be able to stay in neutral territory and then hover back into seller's market where we've lived basically since, I would say, most of the 2018 to 2020 cycle, except for a small period in the end of the fall. So the point of this conversation is to tell you the market has absolutely shifted. People are paying attention to the media. They're a little bit more cautious out there right now. We're not seeing people go as far over asking price. We're seeing contingent offers for the first time in a really long time. And we're seeing price reductions. So hang on here for a second because I want to show you something. You're going to get a look into the actual MLS that we use as agents. So here you have, this is the MLS we use for Monmouth and Ocean County. If I go here to the home screen, you'll see we have some metrics here on a hot sheet, and I can look at it for the last 24 hours. I can look at it for 1 week or, timeframes in between. What I'm paying attention to is here, price change. In the last 24 hours in Monmouth and Ocean County, we've had 53 price reductions on properties. That means usually, or I should say price change. Usually that's a price reduction, which means whatever you offered the property at when it first came to market, you're now adjusting the price down. In the last week, we've seen 338 of them. The number of price reductions we have seen in a week, each week for the preceding last 2 years, I will tell you is less than 40. So you're talking about a massive increase in the number of properties that are doing price reductions compared to what we've seen over the last couple of years. And I can raise my hand and tell you that we did it on one of our properties at 8 Edgewood. So part of it is people have been pricing the properties, assuming that we're going to continue to go up as we have been for the last couple of years. And now that we've hit this shift, which you don't ever feel until it's already happened, you have to gauge whether or not you're priced correctly based on the number of showings and offers and activity you have on it. There are plenty of homeowners who have been shooting way, way farther than even what the projections are out there for their house to be worth right now. And you can either leave it on the market and let it stagnate, in which case you're waiting for the buyer to come and one person tell you what they're willing to pay for the house, or you can quickly make an adjustment to reduce the property in the market. So if you're out there and you're not listed with us and you need some advice on this, there's typical math we use on this, which is 5 and 10%. If you're on the market for 21 days, and I would argue that in this market, it's more like 14 days, and you have 10 or more showings but no offers, you should be adjusting your price down 5%. If you have not even gotten 10 showings and you have no offers in that 14-day period, you're at least 10% off with your property. If you make that adjustment quickly within that 14 to 21 day window, you've re-engaged your market that's out there for your property, and you will get that groundswell of people to come back in and see it, because you've now entered a different price range for those people who can afford it just a little bit lower. And you may even get multiple offers on the property at that point, which has happened to us plenty of times. But the message out here is, if you are out there and you have put yourself on the sidelines as a buyer because you're tired of bidding wars and you're tired of all the craziness with multiple offers, there's some territory to be grabbed right now. There's some opportunities out there. So I challenge you to go stake your flag. Bridget Stewart from, I don't even know where you are right now. You've been in Ireland, you've been in California, you're in Utah. So, Bridget is actually my business coach. And I challenge you guys out there, if you don't have a business coach, no matter what you do, get one, because she holds me accountable. And a lot of the reason why our team is as successful as it is because of Bridget. So, thank you. I'm not sure what Bridget was saying she has when she says I have, but I would imagine that means that she has seen the shift in her market too. Carson City, that's where she is. So thanks, Bridget, for watching. I appreciate it. So I appreciate you guys hopping on. I hope that you found this information really valuable. I hope that you guys are joining me with a local drink of choice. Hope to make these more common for you as well. So let me know down in the comments, what did we cover that you'd like to know more about? What did we cover that, or what did we not cover that you'd like us to talk more about? And then if you're looking for links about any of the state parks and state beaches that are going to be free, I'll make sure that's in the comments down below under the video on YouTube. And if you're ever curious about your property, from buying, selling, renting, what it's worth in the market right now, has it gone up, has it gone down? Find your local real estate agent. If you're local to us, we would love to help you with this. It's free of charge. We want to be your real estate agent of choice as a team, so that if you have a question about any real estate anywhere in the country that you want to do, or anybody in your family does, we're here as a free resource for you. And when I say free, it's the research phase of this. We want to make sure that you're making the right business decision. So if you're looking to move here from New York to Jersey, we've obviously got a tremendous amount of value we can offer you in making sure you make the right decision, pick the right town, find the right school district, make sure your commuting distance is right for where you guys are going to end up. Or if you're looking to move within the county, we'd love to help you with that as well. And if you're looking to leave New Jersey, like a lot of people have over the last 5 to 10 years, let us know, because rather than just going to pick somebody off the internet, we'd love to help you find someone who will take care of you as well as we do. So with that, I'm going to leave you guys. Happy hour, happy Friday. Thank you so much for joining us. If you have any questions, drop us a line down below. And please don't forget to hit the subscribe button, hit the alert bell button down below so you get notified when we drop our next video. And I'll see you guys soon. Thanks always for watching.